All right, welcome back to another episode of the Look Mum, I'm Hustling podcast.
Hustling. It's what we do.
Hustling.
You and me. A couple.
Always hustling.
Yeah.
Sometimes it feels like we're not doing enough hustling. And then you look at some people that are out there, I don't know, on the street, in traffic when you're driving around, perusing society.
Yep.
And people are hustling.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's the perception that you get sometimes.
The pretend hustlers, the ones that just living their life, doing their thing. And then
Not
you got
even
the...
pretending, just to get out of the shops. I'm curious how people get through, like, because I'm always on tilt. Need to be doing something, need to be hustling, need to be finding the next project to do, the next way to optimize or make the business or whatever we're doing more efficient. And then some people are just like cruising around, sitting at a coffee shop, you know, hanging out with their kids at the park. I don't know if I envy that at all. I kind of like what I do.
Yeah.
Because I was always something on, but it can become stressful if I let it. But I also, there's part of me that envies the people that get to like sit back on cruise control 7 days a week.
Well, it's something, and I think we've talked about this before, it's like it's not something that comes naturally to you. Like if you're sitting down for too long, you're like, I should be doing something else that's way more productive. So on last Sunday, we really tried to just have a sit down, chill day and just like watch movies and like TV shows and stuff because I was on holidays and just wanted to have a day of rest before it. And I was very proud of you. You were able to, you know, sit
I didn't
down.
last long.
No, sit down for most of the day. I think you had a mini break. You'd be like, oh, I'm just going to have a 2-minute thing and just do some eBay work and then we'll get back into it.
I lasted about 3.5 hours before I was getting a bit restless. Restless leg syndrome. I don't know if that's a real thing or not. I have heard people say it before.
Restless leg?
Are you yawning already?
Yeah, I did. I've got a green tea. No, it's
freak.
fine. It's fine.
Is there caffeine in green tea? There's not. Tiny bit. More than matcha? Oh, it's pretty much, matcha is green tea. So it's probably a similar amount.
Yeah, I think there's more in matcha though.
Is that a fact?
I think so.
Should we check it?
You can check it if you want. How much
don't want
caffeine
to.
is in matcha? Yeah.
It's not really worth it.
No. But green tea. Yeah, I'm
So
a green tea train.
What we were watching, we'll just rip straight into it because we're pretty dry on segues this week by the sounds of it.
Oh, this one came all right. Like, is, you know, talking about relaxing and hustling
Thank
and
you.
trying to like wind down. Yeah.
Well, this ties in perfectly then. So we watched season 1 of The Bear. I'd seen not pieces of content, but just the artwork and stuff around on the internet, probably for the last, what's been out for a year, of The Bear show, which is basically a show about a restaurant and a chef and the crew underneath him. And we finally, I knew season 2, well, it's out in the US, but it's coming out here in Australia in another 2 weeks, I think, at the time of this recording, which is June 30th. I think it comes out mid-July. So I was like, oh, this looks interesting. And I've heard great reviews. And then we did a bit of I guess you call it a Rotten Tomatoes reconnaissance mission.
Yes.
And had incredible reviews from both like the audience. I don't know how they rate it. There's an audience.
Yeah, they've got like the critics review one and then just like the audience opinion.
So they're both sitting at like 85% or something.
Which is pretty decent.
So we jumped on, watched the entire season 1 of that, which is actually really doable in one single day, which was good to know. The episodes aren't super long. I think there was 8 episodes. And we watched all of The Bear. I'll bring it up just for a bit of visual background reference.
And it's pretty fun. Like Drew and myself, we're not foodies, but we do love food and we do enjoy cooking as well, even though that we meal prep for, 90% of the week. And there's that one day a week that we get to either splurge and maybe do some takeout or we actually cook a meal for ourselves. And yeah, it's just really interesting seeing the stuff that they come up with. So with the Bear chef as well, he's taken over his brother's restaurant, but he's actually like French trained. So he's been at a like award-winning restaurant. He's like an award-winning chef and comes to this like dingy little burger, like classic like New York sandwich shop, right? Yeah, that's been in the family generations for a little bit. Yeah.
It was a fun show, and we both love Maddie Matheson.
Yes.
Bit of a character.
Oh, if you haven't seen his YouTube cooking videos, please do yourself a favor if you want something that looks super dope to eat, but also hilarious to watch. Like he's
a wild man.
He's super wild, and he's also sober, right? Like he's just like a super wild.
He used to be, I'm not sure what drugs he did, but there's stories, I haven't heard about him in a while, of, being in hospital and everything like that. And going to, I would imagine he's been to rehab before, just based on his stories. And he's friends with, I'm pretty sure he's friends with like bands like Cancer Bats and everything, and people from Canada.
Yeah.
But he's big into like the punk music, and like the opening scene of episode 1 was super interesting because it opens up with Refuse, which we both love.
Yeah, you love that. You're like, this is going to be good.
And it's that frantic, fast pace, and kind of in the middle of Anthony Bourdain's Kitchen Confidential book, and that's more sort of 70s and 80s, just wild kitchen nightmares and the restaurant industry, and this just fits in perfectly with what I'm consuming in that book to a more modern take on just how frantic it can be in being a chef. And having more modern music that I'm into with that kind of mentality was just straight away, episode 1, I was like, oh yeah, this is going to be a dope show.
Yeah. Well, there's that whole saying of, managing spinning plates, right? So like when you're a chef, you have like these multiple things going on. And like that's like a management term, like spinning plates. Like you have to manage them and keep them spinning and keep them going and stuff.
I have to say juggling.
Yeah.
It's fewer syllables.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Juggling. But with like their lunch prep or like dinner prep, they have like so many things going on. You have to manage all these like sous chefs or that kind of thing. And a lot of stuff is going on, and you have to try and keep a clear head and make sure you have enough food for the food vendors. And
it's probably on a chill day when you want to, like we watched this on a sabbatical day on a chill day, and it was just got you into that hustle mentality, which is kind of why I liked the show as well.
It gave you that sense of anxiety of just like, I'm not going to have enough time.
Yeah, if we wanted to watch something chill cooking, we could just watch like MasterChef or Great British Bake Off, one of those type of chill food shows, but we chose to watch something anxiety-inducing instead. But it was a really fun show. I can't wait for season 2. The season 1 ends on not really a cliffhanger, but an exciting point of, I guess, no return in terms of they're going to be doing a whole new venture potentially, and just opens up the world of possibilities for season 2. If you're listening in America, you've probably already seen the entire season. But we down under, we get things slow through that internet, the underwater internet cable.
Yeah,
apparently.
we do. The slow release schedule
I don't know
that
why
we have.
this doesn't come out on time, but it's neither here or there.
No. And apparently as well, every time I say apparently, I think of that meme dude, that there's a lot of like little details. What?
Celebrities?
Yeah, celebrities are in it probably, but there's a lot of subtle details that is true to being a chef. Like, so whether it's, they're being, very conscious of their own knife set or having their station set up or having things clean, or just even things about having, amount of towels. But apparently there was one scene where he's like drinking like water, but it's out of like a preparation cup.
Out of a what?
Like he was drinking water, but it was out like a preparation cup.
Most of the scenes, he's just out having a cigarette. He's drinking out of like a beaker or something you'd make a dressing in.
Exactly, yeah. They said that's just very kind of.
Well, your brother's a chef, so you know a lot more of the ins and outs, and I guess what a chef does outside of the kitchen. I would have no idea unless I watched a show like this. And he said like he goes home after making fine dining all day, and then basically, what did he have to eat?
Like he would just have the greasiest, easiest. Like he would just love to get takeout. He'd love to get like Red Rooster or KFC.
I mean, in the show, but yeah, same thing.
Yeah, like he just went home and just made like a peanut butter grilled cheese. Right. Yeah, peanut butter and jelly kind of.
Peanut butter grilled cheese.
Yeah, something like that. But yeah, it was just like something that was just like super basic, just not super healthy. But yeah, with my brother, because he's worked in a few different restaurants, but he worked in like a fine dining like French restaurant for ages. And the last thing he wanted to do when he got home was like make fancy food, so it'd just be very basic. Remember, he used to just put like a cheese slice in a bread and put it in the microwave and zap it for a little bit just for like some sort of comfort food. And you do double shifts all the time. And it was just, he always had this like story of the chef that he had, native language was French, right? So he'd be yelling at him and then all of a sudden switch to French and have no idea what he's yelling at him about. It'd be like English then French and switch back, and he'd just be like, I have no idea. Yeah.
I think that's a problem with any profession. You do it so much at your day job, and a lot of the times you go into that job because you find it interesting or it's your passion or whatever. If you're lucky enough to work doing something that you're passionate about, to get to the point of where it's no longer enjoyable outside of work. I imagine if you're a mechanic, you don't want to be fixing your car on the weekend, or you hear about comedians who they do stand up for a living, but if they're out for dinner with family and friends, people expect you to be funny all the time.
Yeah, tell me a funny story or something.
So it's interesting. We've had this conversation before about not trying to, I guess, monetize or make a career or a business out of your main passion, because at some point it's going to not become so passionate for you because you're putting so much pressure on it. So it makes more sense in that regard to follow your passions, but follow your third or fourth or fifth most interesting passion that you enjoy doing. That way your main thing is never consumed with the stress and anxiety that can be associated with trying to become successful at it.
Yeah, I see that point, but also challenge it a little bit, because then you have people that are stand-up comedians and that's their one true passion. They love comedy, they love stand-up comedy, they love making people laugh. Same as chefs, right? Like they absolutely love cooking, they absolutely love food, they live and breathe it and experiment and things like that. Like I guess it just depends on the type of profession it is.
Also, I guess how many hours you're engrossed in it. So a mechanic can check in 9 to 5, more or less.
Yeah.
These chefs are doing
double
12,
shifts,
14, 16-hour shifts. So the longer you're exposed to it, and I guess the less you want to do it at home.
Yeah.
But if it's just a normal 38-hour week, then potentially
like you're an accountant,
Yeah, or you can go home and do spreadsheets. I think maybe the time of exposure, doing it for a paycheck, is where it can become depleting as the hours increase.
Yeah, well, that's the like profession versus art, right? You can be a cook or like a chef, and not a lot of people think, but like the art of cooking, like creating new foods, creating flavors, creating taste, creating like the placement of the food is quite an artistic endeavor. Same as stand-up comedians are artistic endeavor. If you love acting, that's an artistic endeavor. So it's almost like the artistic side is, if that's your one true passion, you can go for it. Like if you're a painter and absolutely love painting.
Depends if you're going to a 9 to 5 workplace and painting all day.
Should we just not go to 9 to 5
Maybe
workplaces?
we should just not have an opinion if we don't do these things. Our life is so chill and easy and all that. But the reason I like this show is the inability to, or I guess the lack of time available for these chefs, or especially Kami, the head chef, to dwell on ideas or bad decisions or anything. You're constantly going. You have to make a quick decision, act on it. If you're out of an ingredient for the lunch menu, you have to pivot then and there, make a decision, and then 2 seconds later it has to be in operation and getting worked on. You don't have time to be sitting around thinking, oh, what can we do for the lunch menu tomorrow? Because there's already a million things going on that day. So I enjoy seeing that aspect, because I'm the type of person I'm kind of in between. I like to act now, but also like to spend time thinking about the best method of approach or the most efficient method to push through. Whereas here it's just like, we're out of this, we have to do this, you do it now, do this, do this, do this. Well,
I find that they call it reactionary and then being proactive. So if you're constantly reactionary, all you're doing is dealing with that current problem, that current fire, and unable to then think about tomorrow, think about the next day, because you're constantly trying to like chase your tail, constantly trying to fix that thing that's happening in front of you. Whereas if everything's under control, the fires are put out, then you're able to stop, think, and plan for like the next option. But if you're constantly in a position or in a place that's always having to pivot and always having to like react to certain scenarios, then you're always going to be in that frantic mindset of being like, all right, what's going wrong? What do I need to do?
Yeah, it's the difference between working in your business and on the business. So when you have time to sit back and be a bit more strategic and planning, then you're working on the business, making the business better. But for example, in this TV show, The Bear, he's constantly met with new problems and you have to immediately have an answer or solution for it. So you're just working in the business. You don't have time to plan at a larger scale. There is a point in the season where he allocates or he assigns his sous chef to take control so he can go and work on the business behind the scenes, which isn't so, I mean, you're still making quick decisions based on problems, but it's the line of differentiation there between just figuring out problems now, working on them, working in the business, as opposed to working on the business at a larger scale and I guess having a more planned or strategic approach. to prevent more problems, little mini fires popping up.
Yeah.
But such a fun show.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely recommend it. It's on Disney here in Australia.
Yes. Yeah. And it was actually some good, like, it's one of those sort of drama, comedy sort of styles. So it's, got some serious moments, but it's got some really good laugh out loud moments as well.
What's a show you would compare it to? Not in terms of cooking, but in terms of the comedy meets drama mixed with, I guess, it's not a sitcom because it's not a comedy, but it is like a situational drama. It's in a workplace.
Maybe like Suits or something.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, because Suits has like that drama sort of aspect, but it also has those funny sort of comedy moments as well.
This is more relatable, I guess, because it's in a kitchen and everyone's been to a restaurant. Not everyone's been
everybody
into
eats food, right?
What's Suits? Is it a
It's a lawyer, yeah.
Not everyone's really interested in that to begin with.
But everybody eats food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And some interesting recipes as well. As you said, on Maddie Matheson's channel, they do recreate some of the dishes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because he's the producer of the show.
I definitely agree with like an 85% Rotten Tomatoes. It's up there. It's one of the better shows I've seen this year.
Well, we're one of those people, right? And it's whether you're reading a book, watching a show, whatever, if you're not enjoying it, don't finish it. You don't have to stick it out to the very end, like out of spite. Like if we're not into a show, we usually cut it. There's so many series that we've only just seen, like episode 1, episode 2 or 3, and we're like, not feeling it, let's just move on to the next thing. But for us to literally sit down for a whole day and spend our whole day or like half the day watching it, and in my opinion, that means it's pretty good.
Yeah. I don't know if I'd enjoy it as much if I watched it week to week. I enjoyed watching it in one sitting.
Mm-hmm.
Comparatively, Silo, the last episode comes out today, and I enjoy watching that week to week.
Yes.
I don't know if I'd want to watch all of that in one 10-hour block.
I think that would be quite a bit. I think it's with Silo, the last couple of episodes sort of left with the cliffhanger, so it's been good to finish them. They're like, oh, what? And then it makes you look forward to the next episode that comes out, and it's just really well done. So I think we touched on Silo last week.
We'll talk about it next week when we've finished the season, but it's getting like the first episode is like, oh, this is pretty interesting. There's TV shows that have been similar in terms of that dystopian idea or dystopian sort of genre, but it progressively gets better throughout the season, and there's always new surprises happening. And it's not that predictable. I guess if you read the books, you'd know what's going on, but you're not really predicting what's going to happen. So we'll touch on that one next week. I mean, we were just dropping TV. What did we talk about last week? We talked about...
I was going to say Black Mirror, but that was the week before. But we can't remember.
We're just talking about TV shows nonstop lately.
Yeah, anyway. It's because I had time off and actually have time to watch it, and we don't fall asleep within the first 10 minutes of watching something. So
all right, so we've got some more articles to get into. We've got some YouTube news. We've got a disgusting act of vandalism in Rome. I can show you. Got some NASA news, social media news, some side hustles, and some Mr. Beast news.
I don't know what the YouTube news you're going to talk about was.
YouTube news. A couple of new interesting things here if you are a creator on the YouTube platform. So there's 2 articles I found this week. There's actually a lot of stuff happening at the moment. So YouTube's new tool can automatically dub videos into other languages. So sort of an AI component, I guess you could say.
But how would you be able to test to make sure it's translating?
We'll get into that.
Okay.
I mean, that's an interesting point. And then YouTube is testing an online games offering. And actually, Netflix have just announced an AI game as well.
Right.
So these streaming platforms are getting into the gaming.
Yeah, because like what's one way to have people stay on your platform longer is gaming, right?
Yeah. All right, so YouTube's new tool can automatically dub videos in other languages. It's integrated Aloud, an AI dubbing service from Google's Area 120 incubator. Not that means anything to you. YouTube has plans to go beyond translated subtitles. So obviously every video has subtitles and they can actually translate them into your native language as well. So it's going beyond the subtitles and allowing creators to dub videos in other spoken languages. At VidCon, the company announced yesterday that it's testing an AI-powered dubbing service called Aloud. The tool would eliminate the time and often great expense required to dub the usual way.
Interesting.
So this, I mean, you got a Mr. Beast article here we could talk about later as well, but Mr. Beast is probably the most notable person that has multiple channels across a number of different languages. He was actually talking on the Colin and Samir podcast over the weekend about all the different channels he has in different languages.
Yeah.
And he even, I believe, the Japanese translators are the people that do the Naruto voice, the original Naruto anime voices.
Because I think he's touched on, because he also has a Spanish one which does really, really well. And I think he was like, that was one of the things he did. Like, he's paying famous voice actors in that country to do the voices.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he was actually saying he's met them before, and because they have to study so many hours, because it's not just Mr. Beast, it's him and his crew. The people in these other countries that are doing the dubs in other languages have to learn all the mannerisms for the characters. It's not just listening and dubbing. They actually watch how they behave, their mannerisms and stuff like that.
Well, voice acting is acting. Like, they have to act as that person.
So that's the thing. What's an actor do? The best actors are those, what's the word for it? They not role play, but they like immerse themselves deeply into the character. And they kind of do the same here. Even though they're not physically acting it out, they have to do it with the inflection in their voice.
The more believable it is, the more people are going to forget that it's being dubbed over and be engaged in what they're watching.
So it'll be interesting to see at that end of the spectrum, paying someone a significant amount of money to do it super, super, super well in a manual sense compared to this new automation AI version.
Right. Do you know if it's Google based at all, allowed? Because that would be a really interesting thing, because one service...
It says allowed, developed at Google's incubator.
Ah, right. I didn't read that part, because one thing that Google have is, you know, the Google Pixel Buds, right? They've got a live translator, so you can actually activate...
They have Google Translate as well. So they've been working on this technology in different mediums for many, many years.
100%, yeah. So if they've got standard like speech-to-text translations, then this will be generally a pretty easy application for them to do. So rather than being real person talking, it'll be the video aspect. So probably they'd get a spot-on one, because they'd have a lot of data to be able to go off.
Exactly.
Yeah, interesting. Okay. Yeah, that answers my question from earlier, is like, how accurate can the dubbing be?
Yeah. So it's interesting. Another point made on that Colin and Samir interview with Mr. Beast was, because YouTube has been so English language heavy for its entire existence for the last, 18 years, there's been no real breakouts of creators from a different language that have become popular in America or in the UK or something.
Right, because I know it's massive in India, but they're huge in India, not in America.
Exactly. So there's still a potential for some global superstar creator. They'll give them the example of like an Indian Casey Neistat or something like that. So yeah, I mean, we don't watch a lot of it, but we do watch other language pieces of content on Netflix, like Squid Games, for example. I believe, did we watch that in English, or we watched it with subtitles?
Yes.
Yeah. So there's, I guess, more interest or more curiosity for English native speaking listeners or viewers to consume content from other languages. That's if it's good enough anyway, that they enjoy the content. That's
very interesting, because when I've watched foreign films, I've always preferred the subtitle version, because I personally get distracted with the dubbed, that if the lips don't sync up with the actual voices coming through, I get distracted by that. So I'd rather just read on the screen and get that proper, I guess, view of it. Yeah. Yeah. The only time I ever used to prefer the dub is for Naruto the anime. And this is a long time ago. And it's because I wanted to hear it. If I was just, a lot of the time I'm doing something else, I'm multitasking. So I would just want the audio so I can pay attention. But if I'm actively consuming it, then I'd be more than happy to just read the subtitles. I mean, we watch most English things with subtitles. Yeah, that's true, because we're like every platform we have has subtitles on it. Yeah, and I enjoy that. It's kind of what I'm into. Maybe that's I'm missing visual elements here and there, but I prefer to have subtitles on regardless. So it'd be interesting. I mean, this applies more to YouTube. Do we make this podcast in Spanish? Yeah. Or do we become another Mandarin language? Yeah. Because what's English? It's the second or third
largest
Something like that.
population of speaking. It's a horribly sentence.
Yes, but I know what you mean.
English speaking language.
Mm-hmm.
Most popular. Well, it's not really popular. It's most used, I guess.
Like the most spoken language.
Most spoken. You're on the ball. I'm behind the 8 ball. So we have Chinese, 1.3 billion native. Spanish, 485 million. So,
That's a huge jump.
and then English, 373. Yes, I mean, there's plenty of opportunity. Arabic, 362.
Mm-hmm.
So there's almost as many Arabic and English speaking citizens in the world. Hindi.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a gigantic potential for global reach just beyond your the country, the language that you speak.
Mm-hmm.
Which is interesting, very, very interesting. So we'll get on to the rest of this article. So let us know. I wonder if there's anyone that's consuming this with subtitles in a different language. Let us know in the comments.
Yeah.
And we will get on to the AI. I mean, paying enough money in AI tools as it is. So another one to dub the content wouldn't, I mean, probably would break the bank, but
Maybe.
It is what it is.
But
Anyway,
it's just like another one of those ways to like lower the barrier, right? To like have more access.
I guess it's what are you making content for? If it's value driven, what do you want to provide value to as many people as possible, regardless of what language they speak? So some interesting stuff there. The rest of the article goes on to say, again, this is from Engadget.com. It goes on to say, Aloud promises a quality dub in just a few minutes using AI. The tool first creates a text-based translation that creators can check and edit. Then it generates the dub. Users can choose different narrators, how to publish, and more. Best of all, the service is available for no charge.
Interesting.
You gotta love that.
There's probably a tiered version, I'd say.
I don't know.
Tiered
If it's
paid
been
version?
YouTube doesn't charge you for anything. It's the YouTube add-ons like vidIQ and TubeBuddy that are the ones that want to suck the money out of you.
Gotcha.
YouTube is currently testing the tool with hundreds of creators. YouTube's VP or Vice President of Product Management told The Verge it's currently available in English and lets you dub in Spanish and Portuguese, with more languages coming soon. From a user perspective, the setting appears as an audio track toggle in the gear icon just below the subtitles. So if it's free and it's not going to take up a bunch of time, I think we'll be all over it. Editing the translation editing the subtitles of an hour pod does seem a bit timely.
Yes.
But the question is that time worth it to broaden the reach into like areas or countries yet discovered by, or that are yet to discover your content?
No, that's very
true.
true.
For a 4-minute video, easy, but an hour is a bit different.
Yeah, with the podcast, with that lengthy and a lot of words spoken, I know, how does the ums and ahs and the likes translate into another language? It's always funny.
Do we say and ah and like a lot?
I say and ahs a lot. I try not to. We're trying to get better at speaking, everybody. So yeah.
Try, for the next couple of sentences, try and do an ah and like in each sentence.
That's going to be very annoying for people, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
Anyway.
Probably just do it naturally anyway, so.
So like, there you go. It's easy. Just did one then. Easy. Next up, Google News or YouTube News. So we've got to make sure we can do some of your articles today as well.
That's fine.
So that
Spoken languages, we did.
Yeah. Also in YouTube News, Google's YouTube. Why does that say Google's YouTube? We all know who the.
Maybe Google are just trying to get some more branding out there because everyone's talking about ChatGTP and all that, and everyone's forgetting that Google's the original OG of the
Internet.
AI. Yeah, internet AI.
Google's YouTube is testing an online games offering. The new service called Playables is part of CEO's push into new areas amid advertising slowed. Oh man, it's a Wall Street Journal article, and my phone broke this morning, so I can't log into my Wall Street account.
That's right. If you search the games offering, a free article will pop up. If it's any good. That's always our test. Like when we pick articles, if other ones pop up as well from other news sites, then we know
how to be cheap.
Yeah.
So As reported on the Wall Street Journal, this is just referring to the article that we can't afford.
Yes.
The offering would be called Playables and would feature arcade-style games like Stack Bounce, never heard of it, where players use a bouncing ball to smash through layers of bricks. Mm-hmm. So, I guess, boring type of game.
Yep.
Google initially announced in a blog post that Stadia would shut down, which was a gaming service they had for a while. I believe they ended it in January.
Mm-hmm.
It launched in 2019. Stadia launched in 2019 and let users play games directly from the cloud rather than downloading them to a console. It also had a feature on YouTube called Crowd Choice, where creators could live stream a game. However, the service struggled and shut down in January. So the new thing is called Playables.
Right.
They didn't really tell us much.
So they had like their sort of version of Twitch, and it just didn't go very well.
It's kind of like Steam. I think you know Steam. How it's
yes.
I guess. I mean, the difference would be downloadable versus playing directly from a cloud.
Yeah.
But you can access your photos in Google Photos through the cloud, but you're not necessarily. They're not on your device offline.
Taking up memory. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair enough. They're just taking up bandwidth.
All right. I thought there was more to this article, but there's not. So I'll skip over that and not waste any more of yours.
It just must be just announced or coming soon. That's why no one really has.
There was something I wanted to touch on. I can't remember what it was though.
People staying on platforms longer.
Let's have a look. I'll give IndianExpress.com a try.
Mm-hmm.
The games can be played on Google's site or web browsers. There's really no info there. I don't know why I brought it up, but Netflix has this game. I touched on it. I read about it briefly yesterday, but didn't look too much into it, so it could be another dud article.
It's interesting that these streaming style platforms are wanting to get a little bit in that gaming space, whereas you have, Twitch and Steam and all these other PC sort of based ones. Yeah, it's just interesting that they're being like, hey, we also got games. Like, would you play a game on Netflix?
But it's who develops the games. It's not like they're buying games from the head game production companies that are making games for PlayStation and Xbox.
It's like play Witcher through, Netflix.
Yeah, but there's already Witcher games.
No, I'm just saying, but just say if we're like, oh, it's going to be exclusively through Netflix and that's the only way you can play the game.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I think they want new original content that they can own that no one else has access to. Like Witcher, I understand what you're saying, but Witcher was already a game before that, so that point doesn't make a ton of sense. But for example, Squid Game, it was first and foremost a TV show that Netflix had, and they want to make something that you can only access through there.
Gotcha.
As opposed to going to Rockstar Games and getting them to make a game. I don't know if that makes a lot of sense.
No, it does, yeah.
I think they just want to have more IP.
I was about to say, it just comes down to IP at the end of the day. They don't want someone else's IP, they want their own IP.
Yeah, so for example, this one, this is an article from VentureBeat.com. Scriptic raises $5.7 million for user-generated games using generative AI.
I wonder if it's going to be similar to the story-based games, like how we touched on that Walking Dead style one.
This is pretty cool. I'll show you in a minute. So, called Crime Stories. It's the second time in a year that the company has raised money. So the company is Scriptic. Has a catalog of interactive phone-first shows and creative applications in generative AI in entertainment. So let's see if there's much on this article. There's not a whole lot, just talking about the company. The company has also launched a number of episodic and short form titles across a range of genres. In the app, is one of the first entertainment companies to leverage generative AI, which we talked about a bunch, having first used ChatGPT and DALL-E in 2021 to help with content production.
That's interesting.
So it's incorporating video games with AI. on your phone. So it's kind of like a detective game. I'll show you a quick trailer. Hopefully it doesn't get...
Well, there's a couple of these sort of app-based only things, right? So there's some book companies that are app only, like you only can access their books or their written content through apps. So it would make sense there'll be either some gaming ones that are only through an app, or this particular one is like a media company, right? So they could have gaming, have TV shows, have movies, all through the app.
Yeah. The main thing I wanted to show you here is like the AI aspect of it, as opposed to the exclusivity.
Yep, gotcha.
So this, we'll play it here. I don't know if I can play much of it. This is an AI
I didn't see
AI
nothing
game.
yet, but I could definitely tell there's more than one of them chasing that boy.
I just heard all the commotion and came out.
Oh my god, guys. They've just found a woman's
So it's like
body
you're just
in
on
a
your
house
phone doing
in
your
Chile.
own research, but it's as a
find out
game.
who it is.
Like you're doing research through apps and looking at
Yeah.
Reddit forums for questions and videos on social media platforms.
So it's almost like you're the detective yourself and using your own phone to like do the research. The digital
Detective, just got your message about Jerome's tracking data on his phone.
That's the mask. It has to be her.
And you're just like watching like a news video clip and you're just trying to figure it out on your phone.
Yeah.
Hi, Detective. I've arrived at the scene. You go yourself. Oh, please.
So you can imagine
Very interactive.
So you can imagine if you watched, I don't know, you're just an at-home detective, like we've seen when we watch those crime documentaries on Netflix. There's always like a subreddit community that's trying to get to the bottom of it. There was actually an article this week about Adnan Syed from killed his, the serial.
Yeah.
So there's straight away there's all these people bringing out all these conspiracy theories and trying to get more documentation and notes from people that were in that high school at that time and that sort of thing. It's basically that in a video game, but there's AI generated videos and footage and stuff.
That's interesting. They sort of use like stock footage of like people running and all that kind of stuff. That's super interesting.
So it's
almost like it looks real life in a way.
But you can see how it would work into the Netflix ecosystem. You couldn't really put this anywhere else. You could put it on a gaming platform, I guess, but Netflix would probably want to make it episodic, build it out over multiple seasons. For example, we talked a week or two ago about Black Mirror and having episodic games or a game based on the episodes and you're moving between them. Well, this is kind of like that.
Yes.
But with the true detective aspect.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And if they do true crime, like if it was horror would probably do well, and then true crime would do well. That's very much something that's going to get people like involved in.
But you can see that blowing up on TikTok and Twitter and these communities that are trying to uncover things in real time. It can go beyond just that app or just that game, and it can leach into social media where people are working together.
Yeah.
So it's like user generated as well.
Well, think about something as simple as remember Slender Man and how that blew up, and that was just a simple hunting detective style sort of game, right? You had to find these pieces of paper, and then that absolutely blew up, and that had like a Reddit community. It had like dedicated fans. I can totally see something like that happening.
Yes, you can just imagine a local news story and you just become a detective in it. Even though it doesn't exist, it feels like it's a real news article.
Well, referencing like Black Mirror again, the Loch Ness, Loch Ness, the Loch Henry.
That applied to that. They could totally do it.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I was thinking about the other week with the episodic stuff. There's a way to incorporate it, but I guess, true crime would be the easiest way to do that.
Yeah, because you think about how popular true crime podcasts are, how popular true crime books are, TV shows, documentaries, all that kind of thing. Like crime drama always does better or more than anything else because you have so many Law and Orders, so many NCISs, so many CSIs. People love that stuff.
Yeah, you can't really do it on like comedy.
No. And figure out who made the joke.
When's the last comedy game you played?
Never, I don't think. Like, when I think comedy, you think like kid games, right? Like Croc or Raymond or something.
I guess they're more adventure.
Yeah. Like the lighthearted, who's the jokester? Is like Sonic a jokester? Mario?
That's just a scroller.
Yeah.
This is what they call it, a scroller or a platform. You're just running around getting coins the whole time. Immediately I thought of this one. You probably didn't play it.
Beavis and Butthead game.
Beavis and Butthead game, Hockaloogie.
Oh, there was a Simpsons game as well.
We'll show that as well. That's a hectic fun. That's a fun game.
I remember The Simpsons. I never played it, but I remember people absolutely loved it.
It's not really, I guess it is comedy. It's based on a comedy show.
Yeah.
But this game is called, is it Virtual Stupidity? You used to just spit loogies like off a building.
Gang, and welcome again to Old Nerd Gamer. We're in Virtual Stupidity
Don't know what
that was
platform this
released
is
in
on.
1980
Might have been on
or
the
1995.
desktop?
Commodore 64.
I just found this online. I don't know
Oh my
if I was
God,
supposed
I
to
do
find
remember
it
this
online,
game.
but it was free, and I downloaded it in 95
On PC,
and started playing it.
100%.
The whole goal of this particular game,
With the
Hockaloogie, is
Simpsons
to
game.
spit on people.
That's just like a trip
From
down
up
memory
on
lane.
top
I
of
do
the
remember
building.
that
As you
one.
could see, you could
What was the Simpsons game called?
I think it's just called The Simpsons game.
Oh, the South Park game.
Ooh.
The 3D one. That was a game changer.
Yeah.
Hang on, I want to see the Simpsons game.
Road Rage?
'Cause it wasn't Road. I think it was a Road Rage one.
Yeah, that was. Video game?
Hit and Run wasn't that one because I remember it used to be. Oh man,
Go
I typed Simpsons and expected a result. The South. I got to see the South Park game because that was
It'd be on PS2, 100%. Game Boy.
2007. It was before that.
That's PlayStation 3.
I don't know which one it was because there was. I can't even describe it.
No, that would have been heaps.
But it was one of these ones with. I think it might have been this one. There was multiple games in one.
Mm-hmm. Well, I remember the Barney and I remember the bar scene.
That one.
Yeah, like the bar scenes one, 100%. But that's like arcade game. So many.
Interesting.
Oh, there's the 3. So Simpsons game, Road Rage, and then Tapped Out. So I think the first one is called the Simpsons game.
Trying to think of.
Wheel of Fortune. Aliens.
There had to be a skateboard.
100%.
Game.
Yeah, Bart one.
No, they were later on. They were 3D. It was way before that. It was this one.
That one there.
1992 SNES, I believe.
Bart's Nightmare.
It wasn't just a Bart game though. It was definitely on that platform. But the South Park one, N64 was the most fun game.
Yeah, because that would have just been classic like South Park comedy.
Snowballs
and,
at turkeys.
Oh no, they killed Kenny. Like one of those
And
ones.
then there was South Park Rally Wow. I was so jealous my brother had a 64 and never let me play it.
Classic older brother thing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was I talking about before? Chef's Love Shack game. Could be fun. Suck on my chocolate salty balls.
Oh my gosh. Wow, they got away with so much. We're talking about episodic.
Oh, and comedy games.
Mm-hmm.
So I did have a segue planned before that. True crime video game, right? Obviously, it's the best way to incorporate the video game into one of these type of platforms. Sorry, I lost my train of thought with that segue. What I was getting to is true crime is news. So you have an article over here about news consumption and the role that social media plays now in the way that we consume news.
Yes. Yeah. Well, it's a very like smallish article, but it's just like one of those interesting things of just how people now with people using their phones all the time, like how people used to consume their news and sort of how they're doing it now as well. And it's just, there's a lot of like distrust going into the media, not being able to understand or really, figure out what it is they're saying. But something like Facebook, for example, which is the top one, what was this, 2015 to like 2021? Like it's literally dropped by half. Like so many people used to get their news from Facebook or got news articles. But again, is that like an algorithmic change? People they follow, maybe the old groups that were generally pretty good got bought out and now they're just, meme groups. Yeah, it's just like how many people or how people used to get it. Like
since
YouTube?
Since 2015,
Yeah.
Where do you consume your news from?
Mine at the moment, I get them through the apps. I use Feedly and Artifact. I generally don't get it from modern TV at all.
Okay. So then since 2015?
2015, I remember getting a lot of articles and stuff from Facebook.
Okay. And it's declined since then. But then you consider the other generations, 2015 to now is not that long a period of time.
Mm-hmm.
It is in terms of the age of the internet, but it's only 8 years. So compare like our parents, they would be consuming news the exact same way as 8 years ago.
Yes, either the newspaper or from the evening programs.
Whereas the generation below us,
Mm-hmm.
the Gen Zers,
Yeah.
they're the ones that are more impacting these results, I would say.
Yes.
So that's why TikTok's gone from 0 to 6%.
Mm-hmm.
Facebook's dropped because there's less people on there. YouTube's pretty flatline. Twitter's
steady, yeah.
pretty flatline, which I'm surprised about. Instagram is probably the most interesting change, in my opinion, going from 3 to 4% to 14%.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it ever consumes news on Instagram
No.
because it's not really text based, and it potentially I don't understand why that's increasing unless it's in the form of videos when
Or
they introduced
stories.
they introduced IGTV probably like 6 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But even then, you can't really. It's a quick consumption. You don't really get a chance to dive into an article or a news article at least for multiple minutes. So that's probably the most surprising result. I wonder if there's anything more below here. This is from Axios.com. Social media has shrunk as a source for news, mostly due to Facebook's global pullback from news.
Do you remember, I think it was a year or 2 years ago, where Australia wanted Facebook to pay for the right to have the media on their platform, and they pulled like ABC News and all that kind of thing from the platform?
I don't remember the specifics, but I remember that was in the news. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, just this week, I believe something happened with Canada and the way news can get disseminated on there.
And I know Facebook got in a lot of trouble with
There you
the
go.
Trump or just with the elections, and then pushing the type of articles that they wanted to push.
So this is from Slate.com this week. Why Canada's attempt to save journalism may end up crushing it instead. June 22, Canadian Parliament passed BC18, also known as Online News Act. The new law, according to a government news release, will require the largest digital platforms, obviously we know which ones they are,
Facebook, Instagram, Google.
to bargain fairly with Canadian news businesses for the use of their news content. The intent here is to even out the skewed market imbalance between Canadian journalism and big tech platforms, many of which have offered distribution pathways and occasional payment agreements to digital news sites while also sapping them of revenue. So it's a constant battle for news and misinformation and things like that. This is a long article. We don't have time to get into this. But I hear what you're saying. So it's interesting to see. I thought they would all be increasing, but I guess I'm trying to think whether this graph represents or has any impact from the amount of ads that are served on each platform, because Facebook's been constantly increasing the ads in its feed, which could impact it, in saying that Instagram has increased the ads substantially over the last 5, 6, 7, or 8 years in this case as well. But Instagram consumption of news is up. So I'm wondering what it would be, because TikTok's still, Twitter's the same and Snapchat's the same.
YouTube has got a slight increase. So the thing that Instagram's doing really well at the moment is, and we talked about in one of the previous episodes, is their algorithmic change for Reels, and that short form content is doing really well for them. It's serving a better purpose.
Yeah, but in saying that, that's only been in the last 3 years.
Yeah.
This is 8 years. So you can even see from 2015 to 2019, it's had the biggest rate of increase.
Or do you think the people that were on Facebook, right, are kind of switching over to Instagram? Like it's like a generational thing. Like I'm on Instagram, then I'm on more than Facebook. You have to say your mum, for example, she'd be on Facebook more than she'd be on Instagram. Like it's that generational thing of just like switching to platforms or preferred platforms in combination with the vertical format video. Then it's just keeping them on that platform longer. So rather than switching from Facebook to Instagram, you're just staying on Instagram longer.
I'm not sure. I really don't have an idea. It says in this article, the Pew Research Center survey from last year similarly showed Most social media platforms, with the exception of TikTok and Instagram, declined as regular news sources.
So the top 100 news and media sites saw a 53% drop in organic referrals from social media over the past 3 years, according to digital data analysts
so it's
from
saying
SimilarWeb.
websites directly have organic reach down.
Mm-hmm.
And it's saying Facebook's newsfeed made it easier to share links. So it makes sense that there would be more on Facebook because you can copy and paste links. You can't do that on Instagram.
Well, this is saying the decline is largely from Facebook's pullback from the news. So originally, Facebook's news feed made it easy to share news links and news articles.
Yeah, but why would Instagram be increasing? Because you can't do that
because
on Instagram.
Facebook's crappy now. Like, you can't, Facebook doesn't have things that you can share, so you can share more. Or maybe it's just like the algorithm is a bit easier to have news articles pop up or
on
people
Instagram.
the people that you follow, right? So whether you follow
So this is the problem. So it's saying that Facebook decline is because they changed the algorithm or whatever.
Yeah, they pulled back from
Previously,
having news
it was
articles.
one of the go-to places because you could share links,
Yes.
but now you can't. So why is Instagram increasing? So Instagram, you can't share links unless it's through DMs, but I doubt many people are sharing news articles through the DMs.
You'll be tagging them.
Yeah, rarely. Have you ever done that?
Once
So
people do.
then are you searching? So it's like there's 3 options. It's word of mouth, someone sharing a news article with you. Very rarely happens. B, you're searching for news in Instagram. Have you ever done that?
No.
C, it's just getting shown to you.
Mm-hmm.
So the news that you're consuming, you're not choosing what news you care about or what you're getting shown. It's just getting shown to you, which I guess is the same as normal TV. You don't get to choose what you consume. Compare that to InnoReader or an RSS feed. You're choosing the type of news that matters to you the most. So it's almost like the news increase on Instagram is not news that we care about. It's just news that's getting shown to us through the algorithm.
And then the question is, what do people consider news, right?
Well, that could be celebrity news.
That's what I was about to say, because in the last couple of years, Kim Kardashian, Pete Davidson, all these people, that's what's making news at the moment. Like Taylor Swift, all those kind of people. But get 4 or 5 years ago, then it was actual worldly events. But now a lot of celebrities is what gets reported on. Whether it's the royal family or things like that. That's what's constituted in this particular survey as news. Is it current events? Is it, trashy magazine type news? What is news?
The answer is, I guess they basically figured it out here. Everyone's just getting news through Google News.
Gotcha.
That's the most simple. That's what I do.
Mm-hmm.
I want articles for this. I want social media. I just type in social media, hit the news tab.
Gotcha.
It's by far the easiest source or the easiest way of finding it, instead of going, because it is journalists that are writing it most of the time, whereas on the other platforms you have to differentiate.
It's harder to vet the person it's coming from.
So Google News is taking up all of it.
Gotcha.
And it's leading to, it's directing people out to the news sources.
Mm-hmm.
So social media is less for media.
Interesting.
And it's saying here in terms of talking about that, the changes to the Canadian laws, which we touched on a second ago, so there's one more sort of succinct sentence to get the point across. Meta last week said it will block the sharing of news links on Facebook and Instagram in Canada in response to the passage of a bill in Parliament that will require some tech firms to pay news publishers for content that appears on the platform. So they're blocking the news links on Facebook and Instagram in Canada unless there's some sort of revenue generation or some sort
That's
of
what happened
agreement.
in Australia. Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I guess the
Australia
main
the
thing
same
here
thing.
is Google continues to dominate. We have talked about the YouTube changes that are coming, the gaming stuff that's coming to YouTube, the dubbing. We probably already knew this deep down, that Google News is the place. It took us 15 minutes to get there, which is fine. But it's really just, Google dominates. And that new Meta app, the Twitter rival that we've been talking about, was supposed to come out in June. I believe they're pushing it to July now. There's not much hype around it. People think it's going to be a flop. So I guess my point is Google just dominates Meta or anyone else at this point.
Interesting.
Because imagine if they just showed Google News on this chart here. Because the article here is just saying
these are just social media platforms.
Imagine if the Google was there, it'd just be a straight uptrend.
Super interesting. Yeah, because it's one of those things like, one, what is considered news, and then two, it's just getting if you just went to Facebook for your news, it'd be just getting one newspaper and that's all that you get your news from, just getting your news from Channel 9 or just from Channel 10. Whereas like Google News is actually pulling it from a whole bunch of other different sources. It's not just the one newspaper. It's not just the one website. It's getting it from a whole bunch of different areas. So I guess you have a little bit more of an eclectic option as well.
It's saying that we talked a second ago about having to vet sources. You still have to vet your normal news sources. We've seen last week the implosion of that Titan sub.
Yeah.
You have an article here about Mr. Beast that would turn down the chance to be on the doomed the Titan submersible. But we found out days after they started pulling wreckage out of the ocean. But apparently they knew the whole time. I'm not sure who knew, or governments knew, or news corporations knew or not, but apparently it imploded like an hour or something into its journey, and the whole world had their hopes up for 3 or 4 days that they were going to be found, when someone somewhere with some authority knew that wasn't the case.
And they chose to hide the fact that...
Yeah, so the question is, why do they hide it? Are they trying to cover something up? Like, you can't trust anyone. Even the most reputable news sources have some hidden agenda or benefit to dragging things out for a longer period of time. Because if we all found out, hey, an hour into the journey, this Titan sub imploded, people are dead, end of news story, then you're not going to be on that news platform for 3 days straight trying to stay engaged. It's the same as Netflix and the social media apps. They want you on there as long as possible. The news places want the same, because look, we're on this website now. We're getting ads for Indiana Jones. We're getting ads for Canva. We're getting ads for 18 different things.
Well, think about...
They want your attention as long as possible, and the news places are exactly the same.
Well, think about people like wanting to hear news of the sub or just trying to figure out what happened. They'll be refreshing that news site constantly on that platform, refreshing for the most...
Hits. Oh, someone's going to eventually click this link and buy something. So it's just the way the world we live in. Everything's capitalism, which is fine, but at the expense of like just having a story circulating for a few days when the actual truth was known by a select handful of people. Yes, it's kind of sad, but I mean, what can you do? Consume less news is one thing, and just get on with your life. It's just crazy how they all those like traditional news sites, like everybody was just documenting the same story. Like that's the story that was getting out when there's, other things that were going on in the background. So, next time something huge happens, people are going to be like, well, what else is happening? Like what else is being hidden right now? The thing is, it's even hard to find the real answer. Like I think it was 45 minutes. In 2 hours. Likely happened 2 hours. At the end of the day, it's all speculation. No one, unless you were on there, no one really knows what happened. Like, what was being hidden kind of thing. And then obviously if you do something like that, a whole bunch of conspiracy websites will come out. So who has the actual truth? That's the downside of social media and having such readily available access to all these news articles and everything. Yeah, because like obviously, Wall Street Journal, was that NBC News or whatever it is, then you could have like another article that'd be something news or something information. It'd be like, well, who runs these websites? It could literally just be someone in their home or in their basement gathering and being their own journalist. Yeah. So it says the tourist sub lost contact around at 1 hour, 45 minutes into its 2-hour dive. So the world was left to believe that it lost contact, but they were still alive for a day or two. Whereas from my understanding and things that I've looked at is it would have happened so fast that at that 1 hour 45-minute mark, the second it lost contact, it was
Imploded.
is gone.
Yeah.
There wasn't, 40 hours of trying to regain contact. It was just all over before they knew it. So horrible news story and event regardless, but I guess the main takeaway here is that who do you trust? You
Yeah,
can trust
exactly.
us up until a point, I guess.
Yeah. Where are we getting our sources from?
Well, these horrible
Little websites.
Yeah. I mean, they're not horrible. The thing is, all these news corporations, there's 10 of them with different agendas and different names owned by the one person. So they're all just fed the same information and told to not spin it in a different way, but just put their own packaging and bow on it just to get it out there to their demographics. But it's just hard in a 2023 world to know what's truth and misinformation and fake news and real news and
overstimulated, oversaturated. There is just so much out there. So it's that balance of trying to consume enough to get like an overall general opinion or get your own facts, but also not being inundated with too much information that you're just confused at the end of the day.
Well, we won't be confused about when and what time we'll be back next week, which will be a Monday.
Yes, Mondays always.
At
6:30 a.m.
74 next week, and we'll be back next
Eastern
week.
Standard Time.
Give you some more information. And I guess we'll talk about Silo. So if you haven't watched Silo yet, you have the entire week to watch all 10 episodes, and we'll be back next week and talking Silo.
Ooh, right. See you then.
Bye.